I'm Darian Alexis, and welcome to a 20-something survival guide, the place where you and me learn to survive and thrive in our 20s and beyond. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, my name is Darian Alexis, and I'm so excited to be recording. I have not recorded in over a month, and Michael's standing and watching me record in dad's stance. Anyways, I know I just published some episodes, but I haven't recorded an episode in over a month. I miss you so much. I'm so excited to be back to regular scheduled podcast episodes. And as you can see, we have a brand new podcast studio. Thank you everyone so much for joining. Today we're going to be talking about my most recent trip abroad. I went to Rome, the Amalfi Coast, Greece, and the Greek islands with EF Ultimate Break. And I have some things to say about this trip. So I have been on multiple trips with them before. If you want, you can check out my last episode I recorded with Jess, who's also an Ultimate Break ambassador. She gives so many great tips, but today I'm just giving you the tea. I'm talking about the trip, and I'm going to be real honest and raw with you. So first things first, I booked this trip about 2 years ago. Hold up, wait, before I even start talking about the trip, we just need to acknowledge this wonderful podcast studio. I'm so excited about it. I am now recording from Ohio, no longer in Connecticut. As you can see, I got some long hair, and I'm just so excited to be here. Anyways, okay, back to the trip, because that's why you guys came. That's why you're tuned in. So me and Michael booked this trip about 2 years ago. And if you would like to take a trip, I do have a discount link. This is not like a sponsored post or anything, but if you want to go, let me know. And I have always wanted to go to Greece. Greece has been like one of my top locations. And if I'm being honest, I've been to Italy before. I went to Venice and it didn't really toot my horn the way I wanted it to. Like, I had these really high hopes and then I was just super disappointed. I want to preface this with saying I do not like the heat. I sweat. I do not like when it's hot. And so Italy and Greece were hot. Okay. Like, I knew they were going to be hot, but I didn't realize how hot, because they're not just hot, they're hot and humid. I was sweating in every crevice of my body, and we were walking, girl. So the trip, let's get back to it. As always, I pack for the trip super early, and I make a little packing video that I put on my YouTube channel. And I'll also do a trip recap that I'll be posting on my YouTube channel as well, if you'd like to check that out too. But if you just want the chit chat, we're here for the chit chat. So the first day, it was a 8.5 hour flight from the United States to Italy. And so EF Ultimate Break books all of my travel. So I didn't really have a say in what airline we flew. And we flew United. There was no direct flights from Ohio to Rome, which is where we flew into. And so we had a midday flight from Ohio to Washington, D.C., maybe? Yeah, I think it was Washington, D.C. And then we had an 8.5 hour flight from Washington, D.C. to Rome. On the plane, we were back row warriors, last row warriors, and honestly, it was not that bad. I did my skincare routine, put my little rollers in, and I went to bed. If it was not for the new neck pillow I bought, I would have been dying on this plane. However, the neck pillow I bought, chef's kiss, loved it. I actually ended up sleeping a lot on the flight, which was great because I felt ready to take on the day. The food on the plane was actually pretty good too, so shout out to United. However, me and Michael had to rush from our landing to our next flight because we only had like an hour. And if you've never been out of the country, international flights board an hour before takeoff instead of like domestic flights that only board like 30 minutes before takeoff. So we got on the flight. It was great. Then we transferred from the airport to the hotel. Our rooms were not ready, so we just had to store our luggage. And me and Michael had booked tickets to the Vatican. Okay, listen up. If you're going to Rome and you want to go to the Vatican, these are some things that I wish I knew. First and foremost, there is no such thing as a skip the line ticket. There are so many websites that post skip the line. Like, that does not exist, sis, brother, whoever's listening. What it is if you don't have a ticket, you have to stand in this long, long queue to potentially get a ticket. But you can pre buy your tickets, which you need to do if you want to go to the Vatican Museum. And when it's your time to go in, there's these little white tents outside, and the security guards like look at your passport and look at the ticket and let you in. After that, you still have to go through another round of security. What you also may not know about the Vatican Museum is to go into the Sistine Chapel, not to go into the entire museum, just the Sistine Chapel. You have to have your knees and shoulders covered, and they are strict about this. I did kind of get slightly dinged for my shirt because it was like a kind of half cap instead of like a full sleeve like this. So make sure you're prepared for that. To get to the Sistine Chapel, you have to go through the entire museum. And this museum is huge and it's one way. So you can't just go from this room to this room to this room to this room like a normal museum. You have to follow this line of traffic. So me and Michael did end up getting lost because one of the lines of traffic took us to a way that ended up being closed off. And we had to go all the way back around. And I'm like, hey, how do I get to the Sistine Chapel? And they made me go through the museum the entire way again. What I wanted to see the most was St. Peter's. Peter's, yeah. I always like get St. Peter's and Paul's basilicas mixed up, but I wanted to see St. Peter's Basilica the most. And you don't even need a ticket to see it. It is not, you do not access the basilica at the same place as you access the museum. So after we went through the whole museum, I realized I couldn't even get to the basilica from that part of the Vatican. We had to go out and walk around the entire perimeter of the Vatican City to see the basilica, and we saw the outside, and then there was a huge long line again to get into the basilica, and we did not have time for that. So we just said, no, sis. Okay, we're fine. I will say this is the most jam-packed welcome day I've ever had with EF. Usually, like the whole day is booked off for flights. So some people get in late, some people get in early, but me and Michael landed at like 8 a.m. So we did have like a full day in Rome on our very first day, which was great. Also, pro tip, make sure you pack an extra outfit in your suitcase in case your suitcase gets lost or in case you can't do like what we did. You can't check into the hotel immediately. So I just had my suitcase in my backpack, had my makeup in my backpack, changed in the bathroom, and was ready to go. Then we went to our welcome dinner. Our welcome dinner was really good. We had pizza and we got to meet everyone in the group. We did not get to do introductions like we typically get to do. Usually, when I've had EF welcome dinners, it's been like at a private place, but this one we just like went to a big restaurant, so we didn't like go around and introduce everyone, which was weird. But there was a lot of things that happened on this trip that were definitely out of the norm from every other trip I've been on, so that was the first. After that, we did all walk back to our hotel, and we went to like the rooftop and we did some introductions there, and we got to meet everyone. I will say, if anyone from the trip is listening, you know, it is no tea, no shade, but there was many times throughout the trip where I was complaining, and that's just because I had so many other trips to compare it to, and I speak my mind. As you guys know, you listen to this podcast, I always keep it real, genuine, raw with you. And so I was exhausted from walking around because one thing about Rome is their public transport is not good. Some people may think it is. It's not. Getting around Rome was not easy. New York City has so many different trains, trams, buses to take. Rome, me and Michael dropped hundreds, okay, maybe not hundreds, actually probably hundreds of dollars on Ubers getting around because the hotel they put us in was very far from the city center. In my opinion, it was very far from everything I wanted to see. So everything I wanted to see, we had to basically Uber to, or we had to walk very far / transport very far. Did not like that about the hotel. So I was complaining. And so our tour director was like, okay, who wants to take the bus back? And I'm like, me, I've been walking like 8 miles already today. Do not want to take another mile walk or whatever. And then most of the people in the group also said they wanted to take the bus back. However, we ended up walking back. Why ask if we're not going to do it? But whatever. Love you, sis, anyway. So our full day in Rome, I actually, you know what? I usually really like the walking tours, but the entire time on the trip, whenever we had a walking tour, I was low-key miserable because we were in the direct sunlight and I was hot and sweating and we were just walking and there was like no shade. I was thirsty. I was miserable. Like that's on me. I could have made the best out of the situation and I was not. But we went and I was so pissed that our tour guide, like, I couldn't stop and get the pictures I wanted to get at the Coliseum because we were moving. And then she did let us take pictures at another side of the Coliseum, but that was not the side I want to get pictures on. And I know the whole trip is not about getting pictures, but I'm there for the pictures. Like, I'm not there for just the pictures, I'm there for the vibes too. But like, I was really disappointed about that. We went to the Roman Forum for the walking tour, which was super interesting. I really like seeing that. Once again, very hot. So if you're going, bring a fan, bring some sort of shade. There was not a lot of shade there, but it was so cool. And I'm very glad we got to see that. It's very exciting. After that, me and Michael went to Osteria Fortunato for some pasta. We had to stand in line for a little bit, not too long. I think it was like 15 minutes, which is very, normal. Like you have to do that in the US sometimes. So we got our homemade pasta and it was really cool. We got to see the people making it. It was very delicious, very much like that. I posted about that on my social media as well. And then we went to Mr. Tiramisu. Oh my gosh, that is the best tiramisu I'd ever had. We had to wait in line for that too. But one of the workers there literally looked like Mr. Tiramisu. So I swear to God, we saw Mr. Tiramisu. After that, we went to the Pantheon. I also get the Parthenon and Pantheon like messed up. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. But we didn't go inside. We just walked outside and we went to the Trevi Fountain. Rome is so crowded. If there's one thing I've learned while being abroad, it is that I do not favor the big metropolitan cities. I like the small little towns that just have so much character, so much culture. The big cities, mm-mm, mm-mm, not for me. That's how I felt about London too. But all the small cities we went to, loved, 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 loved. The Trevi Fountain was amazing. That was probably one of my favorite things that we saw in Rome. It was just so grand, but it's so funny because it's just like in the middle of the city. Like you'd expect it to be in the outskirt. You just turn around a street and it's like, whoa, there's the fountain. And then me and Michael bussed to this little shopping area, which the shopping area was very disappointing. It had like H&M and Zara and stuff. Like I did not go to Europe to go to H&M and Zara. I would go to Europe to go to all the local spots to stop. I go to all the touristy spots because I am a tourist. And if there's one thing that I regretted on this trip, it was that I let one of the like tour people talk me out of going to this one restaurant because they said it was like a tourist trap. But I got so many recommendations from friends and TikTok and other people that were like, you need to go there. It's the best restaurant. And everywhere that me and Michael went that was a more touristy restaurant were our favorite restaurants. So don't let anyone shame you. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. You are a tourist. Live your tourist dreams. Another really interesting thing about this EF trip is that it was a plus trip that I went on instead of an essential. And I feel like it very much impacted the trip. I was expecting the hotels to be a lot nicer. In my opinion, they weren't, but me and Michael kept getting kind of the short stick for our hotel rooms compared to like the people we were with. Everyone was like, yeah, we got a balcony. And me and Michael were like, we got a porthole. I'm not kidding. There's one hotel we were in. Everyone had a window, and me and Michael were like in a dungeon. It was the only room in the entire hotel that like didn't have windows. There was no air. I was suffocating. I didn't sleep. Like I was miserable. Like I messaged EF and was like, that was pathetic. That was pathetic for a plus trip because you do pay more to go on a plus trip. And a plus trip is just where it's a little bit more expensive, but you're supposed to stay in nicer places, as well as you have one roommate instead of like more dorm living, and you get an extra meal. And the extra meal that we got was at a restaurant that had the same name as like it was named after Michael's last name. And I got the chicken. I did not like the chicken. I liked everyone else's meals, but I got the chicken because you always think the chicken's going to be the safe bet on these EF trips and they included dinners, and the chicken is never the safe bet. I should have learned my lesson when we were in Barcelona and I got the chicken and they give you like chicken with bones and stuff in it. I like a boneless chicken. I'm a boneless chicken girl. Like I am not a chicken wing with a wing in it. Like give me the boneless chicken. So that was one thing. My mind is all over the place. I'm not going to go by a step by step like I was originally going to do for this because I know y'all don't need to know every dirty detail. And if you want to know every dirty detail, as I said, I drop itineraries on my Darian Diaries Instagram as well as on my YouTube channel. I'll be posting the recap. But some things that stand out, I'm going to do pros and cons of this trip. Pro, me and Michael loved Athens. It was amazing. After going to Rome, I was like, I'm going to hate Athens. It's another big city, but Athens was amazing. It was beautiful. It was easy to get around. The transport was great. The weather was a lot cooler. The people were very nice. The restaurants was good. Greek food was better than the Italian food, in my opinion. I think I was just so happy to have protein and vegetables after eating carb on carb on carb. Like I felt so bloated in Italy. So that was a huge pro. Another pro was that this trip did have a little bit more free time, I think, than my other trips. Like I did get a lot of one-on-one time with Michael. I could have been with the group, but me and Michael did opt out of a lot of those opportunities and we just spent it alone. And every single moment I spent alone with Michael was the best moments I had on the trip. So if you are in a couple and you want to go with your significant other, I do recommend maybe going on a plus trip because you do get more of that alone time if that's what you want to have. And that's a good pro of EF trips is that you can make it your own. However, it meant that I wasn't connecting with my group. I will say on this trip, no tea, no shade again, but this is the least I've connected with a group on an EF trip. I've been on 4 EF trips so far, which is honestly a lot. And I have made like lifelong besties on of my first 3 trips. But on this trip, like the people were very nice, but we just didn't connect on the same level as I felt I've connected with people in the past. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because, I don't think it's because I went with Michael because I've been on another trip with Michael, but I felt like coming out of my last other 3 trips, like we were a family. Like I am still messaging the people I met on my EF trips every single day. I don't know if I'll have that like same bond with the people I met on this trip. As I said, they were very nice. I think it was just, I don't know what it was. I don't know if people just didn't like me. I don't know, like vibes were just very different. I don't know if it was a plus trip. I don't know how to explain it. But the vibes are different with every trip. And that is a pro and con to EF, I think, because pro, sometimes you meet like your besties, you can meet your people, you can meet your tribe. But con is sometimes with EF trips, there's a lot of personalities in a group, and you're not going to mesh with every personality. There have been trips that I've been on, and there's just a few people that I'm like, we do not vibe. Like, I thought we were going to vibe and then we don't vibe. Like, I don't know. I also have like a pretty strong personality, so I'm not everyone's favorite cup of tea, and I acknowledge that, and that's fine. I love to dance, I love to sing, and I think that trips I've gone on in the past, everyone's like dancing like all the time, all this stuff. And I also think it was the locations we went to. There wasn't the same sorts of places that I've been in the past. Every country is so different. And of all the countries I've been to, Italy is probably the bottom. It's probably my least favorite country I've been to out of like the 10, 12 countries I've been to. So yeah. The Amalfi Coast was very different than I expected. It's very an Instagram versus reality moment. That was for me. When people told me that I was going to go to Paris, they're like, you're going to be disappointed. You have this image built up in your head. And then I got to Paris and I was like, this is the best trip of my entire life. Like, I'm obsessed with Paris, the Eiffel Tower, beautiful, everything in Paris I loved. I did not have that experience with Positano. I went to the Amalfi Coast, Positano, and I'm like, this is very mid. Like, it was still beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be a hater, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. I was very excited for it. And then it just wasn't what I was expecting. Still recommend going if it's on your list. Like, it was still very beautiful. There was fun shops to go to. The beach was like very interesting. It was like everywhere we went, the beach was different. I was shocked. I'm like, we're in Italy and the beach looks different every single place. Capri, that beach was the devil. I hated the Capri beach, but I loved Capri. Me and Michael had a very good time in Capri. Once again, we had alone time, so we got to just like sit and chill. And every moment I got to sit and chill and really embrace things around me is when I liked it more. I feel like I'm usually a go person, But lately, when I've been traveling, I like to go a little bit, but I need to like just sit and relax. And a lot of time on EF trips, you don't get to sit and relax. I have bruises on my bottom. I have literal bruises on my bottom because the Capri beach was rocks, 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 rocks. And I fell and I was like a little baby hobbling around the Capri beach and I fell and hit rock bottom. I hit rock bottom on my bottom. It still hurts. It's been like a week. The favorite beach that we went to was most definitely Naxos. Oh my gosh, the beach in Naxos, beautiful, amazing. 10 out of 10. I cannot say enough great things about Greece. Everything about Greece was amazing. I don't know if I really have any pro tips for you, but if you're doing this trip, wait to buy things till you're in Greece. The things in Greece were way cheaper than Italy. I spent so much money shopping in Italy, and then I went to Greece and you could get the same thing for like half the price. Also, except for the skincare, I dropped a lot of money on skincare. Other things about this trip. So, yeah, I wasn't too keen on the hotels. Me and Michael loved Capri. I wish we spent more time in Sorrento, Italy. We did love Sorrento, Italy. I'm just yip yapping. I wish I brought notes to this podcast episode. More things we loved. Me and Michael just had so much fun going to different rooftop bars and taking a lot of pictures and just having a lot of moments together and being fun and goofy together. Like one night, the group, I think they went to a rooftop bar together. We stayed back at our hotel and went to our hotel happy hour. I had the best mango mojito of my life. The drinks were cheap. I had like 3 or 4 of them. And then we went back to our hotel room and had a dance party. I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. It was so special. I wrote about it in my little travel journal. So just all those moments with Michael were really great. So I definitely think if you're going on these EF trips, make the trip what you want it to be. If you're going with friends, that's great. If you want to jam pack it, jam pack it. But as I'm saying, as I've said, I feel like I'm being very repetitive. The moments where you're just sitting and relaxing can be the best moments and the best memories. And so that's really wonderful. One thing that shocked me about this trip was the ferry rides. The distance from, or how long it took us to get from Athens to Naxos, it was like a 5 or 6 hour ferry. It was a pretty big boat. I didn't know what to expect. It's like a small cruise ship, kind of. I mean, really small, but so long. So long. So long. So long and so many steps. Oh my gosh. Walking up to the Acropolis. Oh my gosh. I was huffing and puffing. My parents could not do that. Not that my parents are doing it, but so many people wait to travel until they're like about to retire. Do not. You want to be in the best shape of your life when you're traveling because you are walking far. You are walking up steps. You are walking in the heat, and you need to have a young, strong body to do all that stuff. Not saying that someone older can't, but like I just know personally my parents couldn't. And I think a lot of people's parents couldn't. Honestly, I couldn't. If I was 20, 30 years older, there's no way I'd be getting around the Acropolis. And there was a lot of like older people there. Yeah, travel in your 20s, travel in your 30s, travel in your 40s. If you can, if you have kids, get them a babysitter, go out, go explore. Other things that shocked me about this trip, those were mainly the ones top of mind, but it was still a really good time. If you want to book it, definitely book it. Ranking my trip so far, I cannot pick which one is first. Either the Barcelona, London, Paris trip, or I love my first trip. It was the Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Austria trip. That trip changed my life forever. Those trips were amazing. This trip would come in third place, and then Grand Tour of Ireland would come last, simply because we went in the winter and we ended up all getting COVID on the trip. It maybe would have been different if we like went in the summertime, but also Ireland was never on the top of my bucket list. That was a trip for Michael. He wanted to do that one. But Greece was definitely at the top of my bucket list, and Greece did not disappoint. If we went back, I don't think I'd ever go back to Naxos. Naxos was really great and all, but it was a very big island compared to some of the other islands. So you did need like buses and stuff to get around the island. I would have preferred to go to a smaller island where we could just like walk around. And it wasn't the typical like Santorini blue top white buildings, but it was very beautiful. And one of the really cool things we got to do on this trip was a boat ride. I was thinking we were going to be on a yacht. We were not on a yacht. We were all jam packed on this little sail ship, which was still fun, but was not what I was expecting. We did a cruise, but the cruise was so long. It took us like 3 hours to get 3 hours on a boat ride. Okay, maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe it was an hour and a half. I have no concept of time. It was a long boat ride to get to, I can't pronounce it, the Kalafakasabet. I'm just going to put it, I'll put it in text island. And we got to sail around that and get off at the port and jump off the ship, which was very, very cool. I'd never done anything like that before. And we got to jump off a cliff, which was also very, very cool. I've never done that. And we got to swim in a cave. Once again, very cool. We got to snorkel, but there was no fish really to see. So I don't know. But that was a really cool experience overall. It was a really great experience, really good food. But there's definitely pros and there's definitely cons. Traveling isn't all sunshines and rainbows, so don't think that it is. Like if I was rating the trip, there was probably 4 days on it. I was telling my friends there was 4 days that were like the best days of my entire life. The best days ever. There's probably 3 more days of that were like good days. Like I had a good day comparable to other days. And then there was a few moments on the trip where I'm like, this is the most miserable I have ever been in my entire life. And that's just me being dramatic. But there's definitely like moments where you're like, I am so hot. I feel like I'm dying. I haven't slept. You don't sleep on this trip. You don't sleep. You don't rest. The only time you get to sleep is when you're on that like 5 hour ferry or when you're on your like 10.5 hour plane ride home. Keep that in mind. Maybe I was a little negative in this podcast episode because I did have a really good time, but I wanted to be real with you, I wanted to be honest with you, and I'm a few days off the trip, and this is how I'm feeling a few days off the trip. I did get some really good pictures. Michael was Instagram boyfriending it up. He did so good. And overall, I had a very, very wonderful time. I bought some really good gifts for my friends and loved ones. And I'm still daydreaming about that Mr. Tiramisu. Jeez, that was so good. Ugh. And on Capri, I got this lobster linguine. Oh my gosh. Honestly, my favorite part of the trip was the food. I fucking love food. That sounded like I said the F word. I didn't. I said I freaking love food. So yeah, don't quote me there. But I know it's jibber jabbing. If you're still tuned in, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you guys love to travel as much as I do. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram at Darian Diaries or on TikTok at Darian Diaries. If you like this episode of the podcast, be sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Leave a rating. That really helps me. As I've said before, like I will take any and all of your feedback. I'm here for you guys and I want to make this podcast whatever you need. Thanks for taking a moment to sit in and tune into the podcast with me. As always, I'm Darian Alexis, and don't forget to survive and thrive.